My husband Mark had barely left the driveway when the silence of the house wrapped around me like an unexpected blanket. The hum of his car disappeared into the night, leaving behind the echo of his goodbye kiss and a promise that he would call once he landed in Chicago. Business trips weren't unusual for him. His job in corporate finance often took him away for days at a time, but this one felt heavier than the others. Maybe it was the length of it, a full week, or maybe it was the fact that I had been feeling strangely restless in our marriage lately. I tried to shake the feeling off by pouring myself a cup of tea and curling up on the couch with the television playing quietly in the background. The house felt too still, every creak of the wood and shift of the pipes reminding me that I was alone. Just when I was starting to relax, a sudden knock at the door startled me. My heart jumped, and I glanced at the clock. It was only 8:30. When I opened the door, there stood Jason, Mark's best friend since college. He was holding a bottle of red wine and wearing that familiar, easy grin that had always made people feel comfortable around him. "Evening, Sarah," he said casually, lifting the bottle like a peace offering. "I figured since Mark's out of town, you might appreciate some company." I blinked in surprise. Jason was the kind of man who never needed an invitation. His presence always carried confidence. I hesitated for a moment, then smiled politely and stepped aside. "Come in, Jason. You didn't have to bring wine." "Of course I did," he replied, stepping into the house with a light laugh. "You shouldn't have to sit here by yourself all week, staring at the walls. Besides, I promised Mark I'd keep an eye on you while he's away." That made me laugh, though a small part of me wondered if it was true. Mark and Jason were close, like brothers. I could easily imagine Mark asking him to check in on me, though I doubted he expected Jason to show up with alcohol. Still, I didn't mind the company. Loneliness had been creeping up on me the moment Mark's taillights vanished down the street. We settled into the living room. Jason uncorked the wine with practiced ease, pouring 2 glasses before handing one to me. I didn't usually drink much, but I accepted it out of politeness. He raised his glass. "To surviving business trips," he said with a smirk. I clinked my glass against his. "To surviving." At first, our conversation was light, filled with the usual small talk. We reminisced about stories from when Mark and Jason were in college, the late-night pizza runs, the bad haircuts, the road trips they had taken with nothing but a map and a tank of gas. Jason had a way of telling stories that made them come alive, his gestures animated, his voice full of energy. I found myself laughing more than I had in weeks. But as the evening wore on, the tone shifted. Maybe it was the wine, loosening both our tongues, or maybe it was the fact that without Mark there, Jason seemed to shed a certain restraint. He started asking questions that felt more personal, more direct. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "how are things between you and Mark?" Honestly, the question caught me off guard. I swirled the wine in my glass, avoiding his gaze for a moment. "We're fine. Why do you ask?" Jason tilted his head, studying me. "Because I've known Mark for years. And I've known you for a while too. And sometimes, I just get the feeling you're not as happy as you let on." I froze, the words hitting a nerve I hadn't realized was so exposed. He wasn't entirely wrong. Mark and I had been married for 6 years, and while we loved each other, things hadn't felt the same lately. His work kept him busy, his mind often elsewhere, and I found myself yearning for attention that seemed to slip further out of reach. "I don't know what you mean," I said carefully, but my voice lacked conviction. Jason gave me a knowing look, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Sarah, you don't have to pretend with me. I care about you. You're more than just my best friend's wife. You're my friend too. And I can see when something's bothering you." There was something disarming in the way he said it, his voice low and sincere. I felt my defenses start to crumble. Maybe it was the loneliness, maybe it was the wine. But suddenly I found myself confessing things I hadn't admitted out loud before. "It's just sometimes I feel invisible," I said softly. "Like Mark doesn't even notice me anymore. He's always so busy, so tired. And I get it, I really do, his job is stressful. But I miss the way we used to be." Jason listened intently, nodding slowly. His eyes didn't leave mine, and the weight of his gaze made my heart race. You deserve to feel seen, Sarah. You deserve someone who makes you feel special every single day. His words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. I shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. My mind screamed at me to change the subject, to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but my heart wasn't cooperating. The night stretched on, the bottle of wine emptying glass by glass. Jason stayed longer than I expected, and the atmosphere grew thicker with every passing minute. At one point, he reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers brushing against my skin. The gesture was small, but it sent a shiver down my spine. "Jason," I whispered, my voice shaky. This isn't right." He drew back slightly, though his eyes never wavered. "I know. And I'm not trying to make things harder for you. I can't help how I feel." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" Jason hesitated, then finally admitted, "I've cared about you for a long time. Longer than I should have. I never said anything because of Mark, because he's like a brother to me. But being here tonight, seeing you like this, I can't keep pretending." The room spun, my emotions tangled in a whirlwind of guilt, confusion, and something else I didn't want to name. I stood quickly, setting my glass on the table. "I think you should go," I said, though my voice trembled. Jason stood too, his expression pained. For a moment, I thought he might argue, but instead he nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean to cross a line." He gathered his things and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. Don't lose yourself waiting for Mark to notice you again." And with that, he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat back down, staring at the empty wine glasses on the table, my heart pounding in my chest. What had just happened? I hadn't crossed a line, not really, but I had come dangerously close. The temptation was there, lingering like a shadow, and I hated myself for even entertaining it. That night, I lay awake in bed, replaying the evening over and over. Jason's words haunted me. Was he right? Had I really been losing myself, waiting for Mark to give me the attention I craved? Or was this just loneliness twisting my thoughts? When Mark called the next morning, his voice warm and familiar, I tried to push it all aside. "I miss you," he said. "I'll call again tonight." "I miss you too," I replied, forcing a smile he couldn't see. But as I hung up the phone, I knew things weren't as simple as they had been before. Jason's visit had planted a seed of doubt, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake it.